peace, what's good? This is Hip Hop Album Review Part 32. Let's get the show started for today. First album of the day is 360 Degrees by Cipher. This was released in 1997. The reason why I say that is because I'll get into who they are. Cipher is a Vancouver-based group from Vancouver, like I said. They got their start back in the early 90s, 91. They both met each other in college, and they saw that they got everything in common and whatnot. And fast forward to 1994, 1995, they got their own studio and whatnot. They started making their own stuff, their own beats and stuff like that. And then in 1995, they released their first single, Peeps. And then in 1997, all the way to 1997, they released this album. The reason I said I thought it was from 1997 because, like I said, if you see right here, 1997 Bomb Hip Hop Records, but over here it's executive produced 1994, 1995. So I'm assuming this album was made in 1995. 1994, 1995, but it was completed in those 2 years, but it didn't come out until 1997. So that's my concept, my theory, I guess, about them. How I found out about these guys, back in 2002, the Fuse channel, for my people that got cable that know about that channel, back in 2002, back in the early 2000s, like the late 90s, they had a show called Rap City. No, not the Rap City from D.I.T.C. There's a different Rap City. They would show a lot of old school videos from like the 90s. Like, it's very, very like exclusive videos that you really didn't see too much of. They would play it on that radio station. In that video in that show, Rap City, and they would also play cats from Canada, because it's a Canadian channel. Cats like like Danny O and people like that, and so things like that. And that's how I found out about them. And they play the video how it go, and so I was like, damn, I like the way it sounds. So I copped it. I ordered it because I ordered it from Barnes and Nobles because it was hard to find. It's a Canadian album. This album is pretty solid. Singles this album is known for are How It Go and Peeps. The members of the group is considered two people. Clean is the producer, and G2 is the lyricist, and he's also the DJ of the group as well. I think that's pretty dope. This album, you know how like you take those midnight drives. This is the perfect album to do that. You take those midnight drives, you just drive to wherever. Like, it's like late at night, you just want to drive somewhere. This is the perfect soundtrack for this shit. You want to play, you want to drive, you want some music to play, late at night while you're driving and shit like that. This is the perfect album. This is 360 by Cipher, released in 1997. This album is actually out of print. It's very hard to come by. So if you can find this album, let me go cop it. Next album is Dr. Dre's The Chronic, his debut album, released in 1992. You guys should know who Dr. Dre is. I already did a review on his The Chronic 2001 album, and the Dr. Dre Presents the Aftermath compilation album that I did a couple weeks ago. And this is his debut album, released in 92. This is when he was under Death Row Records. Like I said, Dr. Dre, definitely one of the best producers, but definitely one of the best producers to touch the boards and stuff like that. But even though he's not my top 10, but I definitely respect his work, at least the shit that he did back in the 90s. That's the Dr. Dre I like. But anyways, he released this in 92. This was like right after NWA broke up and stuff like that. He went with Death Row Records. Singles his album is known for Nothing But a G Thing, Fuck With Dre Day, or aka Dre Day, where this is Eazy-E, like hard, and Let Me Ride, which was like more of the it wasn't the most successful single, but it was definitely you know, successful and stuff like that. It was definitely known. What's interesting is that they actually have a video for the song Little Ghetto Boy, which I guess was unreleased for some time, but they do have a video for it. If I find it, I'll definitely post out a link. And in 2009, they re-released this album. This is actually the 2002 re-released version, the remastered version, as to say. But they re-released it again in 2009, and what's interesting is that version has it comes with a CD and a DVD, and it also comes with 7 songs that was left off of this album. So if you don't have this album, if you could find that version, it's called the relit version, and it has like the, you know, like the burnt paper effect to the cover and stuff like that. If you can find that version, definitely go cop it. It's definitely worth the money and things like that. But if you guys are fans of West Coast G-Funk hip-hop at its finest, this is definitely a dope album. A lot of people like to compare this album to Doggy Style, you know, based on the beats and the lyrics and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Definitely must have in your collection if you're a fan of Dr. Dre, if you're a fan of Death Row Records, if you're a fan of West Coast hip-hop. This is Dr. Dre The Chronic, released in 1992. Definitely must have. Next group, well, next album is The Cold Vein by Cannibal, released in 2001, I should say, excuse me. Cannibal is a group from Harlem, New York. They got their start back in 2000. You know, they got signed by Def Jux Records. You know, this is definitely a hip-hop underground. This is an underground, it's a hip-hop classic by many, you know, but it's really an underground hip-hop classic. You know, they got put on by, like I said, by LP. They got signed by Def Jux Records. You know, things of that nature. They put out a couple of songs here and there, and then eventually they put out this album, Cold Vein. The singles this album was known for Vein and The F Word. The F Word is such a dope song. That song actually, The F Word, is actually, it talks about, you know, girls, you know, putting guys in the friend zone. Guys that's actually trying to like holler at the girls, but you know, the quote unquote nice guy gets put into the friend zone. That's what that song talks about, and that song is so relatable. This album, the beats, you know, a lot of people like to compare this album to like 36 Chambers, because based on like the dirtiness of the beats, you know, and I can see what they're talking about. But except like if you like, you know, 36 Chambers mixed with Company Flow's Funk Crusher Plus album, like their first album, you would definitely enjoy this album. This album is definitely like some of LP's best beats. And then unfortunately this is like the only album they ever came out with. Fast forward to 2005, they released a live album called I forgot the name of the album. Give me 1 second. Return of the Ox. Live at CMJ as to say. Released in 2005. On that album, they released, you know, like their they perform like songs from this album, as well as they have like exclusive songs on that album. And during that time, you know, Cannibal Ox and LP, they had a falling out, you know, things of that nature. And then they broke up and things of that nature. And then like Cannibal Ox, and then in 2007, LP did an interview, and they asked if Cannibal Ox was able to, were they gonna ever make an album? And you know, he said he doubts he's ever gonna make an album with them and things like that. And Vasquez said like, we're gonna make an album, but that album never came to fruition. And Voodoo Mega, he fell into depression. he fell into clinical depression based on what I've read, and things of that nature. So he fell off the game. Like he never made any albums. I mean, he did a debut. He released a solo album. I forgot the name of it, but it's a pretty dope album. I don't have it in my collection, but I did hear it. And that's like the only album that was released in 2004. And then since Cannibal never made an album, Vast started coming out with solo albums and things of that nature. But back to this album, Cold Vein by Cannibal released in 2001. This album is actually out of print, so if you can find this album, go copy it. Then we got the next album. Let's see how much time I have left. Alright, we good. Next album is The Awakening by Lord Finesse, released in 1995. This is his third album. This album was released a couple years after The Awakening album. Unlike his first two albums, this album has like a shitload of guest appearances, you know what I mean? Some of them are on songs and some of them are on interludes, you know what I mean? Just people talking or like people just like freestyling over Primo's beats, not Primo, Lord Finesse's beats, excuse me. Definitely my favorite album from Lord Finesse. This album is definitely slept on, but a lot of people consider this his best album just based on the beats, and he definitely stepped his game up on the lyrics and things of that nature. The only people that produced a track on this album, where he only produced 2 tracks, was Mike Lowe, who was a D.I.T.C affiliate, and Mike Lowe actually he produced a lot of the beats for Ill Biscuit's A Chronicle of Two Losers, which I don't have in my collection, and it's very hard to come by. But if you could find that album, recommend it. If you like D.I.T.C, like that type of production, like mid-90s jazzy boom bap like D.I.T.C is known for, you'll definitely enjoy that album, Chronicle of Two Losers. But back to this album, a lot of people complain this had a lot more interludes than actual songs. So a lot of people like to consider this like an EP, but it's an album nonetheless. But singles I was known for, there's 3 singles actually. The singles are Hip to the Game, and Game Plan, and Actual Facts, which is funny because that song Actual Facts is actually the hidden track of this album. If you look at the track listing, it says 15, but it's really 16, but it's just a hidden track. You know what I'm saying? But to me, some of Lord Finesse's, this is Lord Finesse in his prime, in my opinion, and especially production-wise. His beats back then was like more grimy, it was dark, he was doing a lot more sinister beats and stuff like that. I kind of wish he could go back to that style, you know what I mean? But Lord Finesse, this is definitely a must-have in your collection. If you're a fan of D.I.T.C, if you're a fan of Lord Finesse, if you're a fan of mid-90s boom bap, this is definitely a must-have in your collection. I believe this album is actually out of print, so if you could find this album, they re-released it a couple years ago, but I believe it went out of print because a lot of people were looking for this album. So, but if you could find this album, definitely a must copy in your collection. This is Lord Finesse, The Awakening, released in 1995. Must have. Next album is the D.O.C, Helter, Skelter, released in 1996. For those who know who the D.O.C is, he's an MC from Dallas, Texas. You guys should know D.O.C. He's affiliated with NWA. He got his start back in the mid-80s, like 1986. And then he was part of a crew called the Feel Fresh Crew. And they got their first start. Like I said, he got his start with the Feel Fresh Crew. And he first appeared on NWA's compilation album, NWA and the Posse album, which was released in 1987. They appeared like 4 songs and stuff like that. He broke up, he left the group, and he moved to Los Angeles, and you know, things like that. And he hooked up with NWA and stuff like that. And fast forward to 1989, he released his first album, No One Could Do It Better. The album was critically acclaimed because of his lyricist, and also he also ghost wrote for Dr. Dre too, and you know, things like that, you know. And a couple months after the album was released, he actually got into a car accident. You know, he was coming from a party. You know, I guess he had a little bit too much to drink or whatever, and you know, he fell asleep under the wheel. From what I heard, like the car, like, you know, it was driving. He fell asleep behind the wheel. He crashed into a car, into a tree, and it messed up his larynx. And you know, it fucked up his whole voice, and it changed his voice permanently. So like, his voice had like a real grimy, raspy voice, you know what I mean? And he still wrote for NWA, you know, aka Dr. Dre, I should say. And then in '92, he was featured on a couple of tracks on the Chronic album, and it's interesting because he was featured on a track called the 20 Sack Pyramid, which is paying homage to the game show, The Pyramid. I think like the $100,000 pyramid or something like that. It was a game show or whatnot, and you know, he was featured on that skit. You can hear him on that. And then let's fast forward to 1995. In 1994, he had a dispute with Dr. Dre and Death Row because he wouldn't get any, you know, royalties for him ghostwriting records for Dr. Dre's records. So he left Death Row, and the reason why he named this album Helter Skelter is because Dr. Dre and Ice Cube were supposed to make was supposed to do a collab album under the name Helter Skelter, but you know, that never came to fruition. He relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. He recorded this album. He kept the name Helter Skelter to spite Dr. Dre, and then he released this album. This album only has 2 singles: Return of the Living Dead and For My Dogs. This album, it got ignored by fans. A lot of people didn't like it because, you know, because of his voice. The beats are dark, you know, like they felt like the album, like he was all out of the place, and it wasn't the D.O.C that, you know, they liked, you know what I mean? This album actually had like a horrorcore feel to it, but again, if you're a fan of, you know, D.O.C, you definitely should have this album in your collection. Definitely, like I said, if you're a fan of him, you definitely enjoy this album. This album is actually out of print, so if you can find this album, definitely go cop this album. You can find it, it's actually out of print. So, Helter Skelter by D.O.C, released in '96. Next album is Common, Resurrection. This is his second album, not his debut. The reason why I say that is because a lot of people think Resurrection is his first album. It's not. His first album is Can I Borrow a Dollar, which I do have in my collection. I will do a review on that some other day. But anyways, Common, he's an MC from Chicago, Illinois. He got put on by No ID. No ID at the time was known as Immense Slope, and you know, they got together, and you know, they made the album Can I Borrow a Dollar back in '92. The album wasn't really successful, things like that. And fast forward in 1994, well, the reason being is because Common, you know, at the time, like in his first album, he wasn't rapping like he was now, like people know him now. Before, he he was more on the gangster tip. A lot of his stuff was like more misogynistic. He had like a high pitched voice at the time, you know what I mean? And it was really weird at the time. Like a lot of people wasn't used to it. So that album failed. But then in 1994, he released this album. And this album, like, he felt like he had to step his game up. You know, he changed what he was rapping about and stuff like that. And released this album. Singles album was known for I Used to Love Hip Hop, which is paying homage to hip hop. When he talks about how hip hop, the direction of hip hop is going at. Pretty brave at that time because, you know, at the time, you know, gangster rap was on the rise, you know, it was taking over, you know, things of that nature. And Resurrection. And those are the only 2 singles off the album. This album is a classic album. If you're a fan of mid-90s hip-hop, you're a fan of East Coast hip-hop, even though this is Midwest hip-hop, but it's more considered the East Coast hip-hop based on the beats and things of that nature. If you're a fan of Common, definitely must have in your collection. If you're a fan of hip-hop in general, definitely must have in your collection. I mean, nothing much to say about this album. Then we got Boss. Born Gangstaz, released in 1993. For those who know who Boss is, she's an MC from Detroit, Michigan. She got her start back in the early 90s. I think like 91, I want to say. You know, she graduated high school in Detroit. She relocated to LA. She got put on by DJ Quick, and then, you know, she got signed by Russell Simmons, excuse me, and she got signed to Def Jam West, and, you know, she released this album. Singles this album was known for. There's 3 singles off the album: Deeper, excuse me, Recipe of a Hole, and Progress of Elimination. This album definitely, this is actually her only album because she never put out an album after that. In 1994, she did an interview with, I forgot who, I think it was like Rolling Stone magazine, and like the interview did some research, and it was saying like how she's not the person who she was and things of that nature, and that interview pretty much killed her whole career. And because, you know, they were saying that she grew up in a middle class neighborhood, and she didn't grow up the way she grew up, but how she talks about the records and this of that nature, so that really killed her career. But if you like gangster hip hop, you definitely should cop this album. I don't think this album is actually out of print. It's a little hard to find, but if you can find this album, this is definitely a must-have in your collection. If you're a fan of early 90s gangster hip hop, definitely a dope album. If you're a fan of, like, you know, early Onyx, like Back the Fuck Up Onyx, you'll definitely enjoy this album. This is Boss, Born Gangstaz, released in 1993. Definitely must have a collection. Let's see how much time I have left. Alright, and the last song I'm gonna do is Brand Nubian, their second album, In God We Trust, released in 1992. My opinion, their best album. Let me start who Brand Nubian is. Brand Nubian is a 4-man group, I should say. No, 5-man group, I should say. Excuse me. Well, it's really 3 when we boil down to it. They're a group from New Rochelle, aka Nauru, which was dubbed by them. They got their start back in the late 80s, 89. I already did a review on Grand Puba's first album, and I already did a review on Lord Jamar's first album. You know, Lord Jamar left Master Ceremonies, like I said before in my other reviews. You know, and they formed Brand Nubian in 1989. They put out a couple of singles, and they released One For All, which I don't have in my collection, which I should. When I do get it, I will do a review on that. It was released in 1990. You know, Brand Nubian is known for their 5% Nation lyrics, social, political lyrics and stuff like that. And then you know, the album was successful, but you know, it definitely got sales, but like at the time, you know, it was successful, but not successful as far as sales. But it definitely was a successful album. And then in 1992, they released this album, In God We Trust. Singles is I was known for Punch Jump Up to Get Beat Down, Love Me or Leave Me Alone, and Allahu Akbar. That song Punch Jump to Get Down got in a lot of controversy because that song actually was I guess they would say like an anthem to beat down gay people. You know what I mean? It was like a gay bashing song. You know, as you know, that's what it was saying. But it gained a lot of controversy off this album, of that song particularly, and it was a big hit back in the early '90s. And then this album is definitely in my opinion the best album. Like the beats and stuff like that. Like Brand Nubian was doing like most of the beats. I think like the only beat that they didn't do was Punch Jump Up to Get Beat Down. That's the only beat that they didn't do. You know what I mean? And so definitely, if you're a fan of Brand Nubian, if you're a fan of early '90s hip hop, if you're a fan of political hip hop, you will definitely enjoy this album. This album is actually out of print, so you can find this album. Definitely must have in your collection. This is Brand Nubian and God We Trust, released in 1992, 93. That's it, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed that review. Peace.